And then when I get to the last didn't she click on
Yes,
it, it will be
already.
Oh.
So you're going to sit at the table
Yes, ma'am.
and I'll click it to the last.
Right, you don't have to click on it. I'm sure you can hold it up. So, just when you get to that slide.
She was just telling me, dude. We gotta keep the entire Beaver staff. Oh my God.
It's a killer, buddy.
Oh, that's almost
It
done.
hit me out of the blue about 2 weeks ago. Something like that. Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, it's 2 weeks ago. It was just like, dang, no, you got to keep the whole staff. I said, I think so. I think it's.
When you and Diane and Kathy, they found the loophole.
Yeah, where they got so difficult, you know, that they said it'd be easier just if we didn't. Well, it's easier. It's not difficult. It's not. Nope.
Hello.
This is the
I'm
strangest.
tired. I'm tired. Sleepy. I'm tired.
Want me to keep a chair between us?
You know the thing with the grading scale is the other day. What the hell is it?
Well,
If we were to become standards based, it means something. You got an A, you can do this math and beyond it. If you got a B, you can do this math. If you got a C, you're getting close to it. Parts of it, you still don't, you haven't mastered it, but like the average person, it's a high bar. So that makes some sense.
But I don't think people get it. I kind of said this, and I think I made them mad. A lot of it is because we got to meet every time. She keeps leaving it to you and I.
Think about that. John, think about that.
No,
I mean,
that's that angle right there.
John,
Yeah, because I know, I mean, that's what they said. They said this. Saying something, I was, so I gotta watch this.
approve it and match it to another committee has to approve the same bill or change it. Then it's, every one of those points is a place where if I want to just stop anything, I got a battleground. So I don't have to make a good deal. I just have to stop the one that would be
Microphone check number 21. Microphone check number 21. Test 1, 2.
We need to move it. We need to expedite what we do.
Exactly.
Microphone check number 21.
That's good. Thanks.
I mean, right, it's, okay, we got this and that. I mean, this should be relatively. Right? There was one person that signed it to speak on the grades. That was that lady. She's the one. Yeah. I think but she wants to speak on grades. Hello.
All right. Let's see, we're missing Mr. Brady. He'll work his way to us in a moment, and we'll start in about 60 seconds. All right, well, let's go ahead and come to order. I call the June 22nd meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education to order. I need to announce that the Board of Education met in executive session at 6 p.m. for the purpose of a preliminary discussion concerning the 2014-15 final board summative evaluation of Superintendent Donna Hargens as provided for under KRS 61.8101K of the Kentucky Open Meetings Act and KRS 156.557. No action was taken. At this time, I'd like to welcome all of you here and ask that we begin with our traditional moment of silence. Thank you. Let us all now please stand. Because the students are all on vacation, it's up to the grown-ups to say the pledge by themselves. So let's begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, Chris, would you read our vision statement?
Thank you, Chair Jones. Yes, the JCPS vision statement is all JCPS students graduate prepared to reach their full potential and contribute to our society throughout life.
Okay, thank you very much. There are no recognitions or resolutions this evening. So at this point, the next item is to vote on approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was June 8th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Mr. Brady moves, Dr. Wilner seconds. All in favor, aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously. At this point, Dr. Hargens, I'll turn it over to you for your report, please.
Thank you, Chair Jones and members of the board. It's my pleasure to call to your attention a few items of special interest. A special thank you to 1967 Valley High School graduate Marshall Goldsmith, and by the way, a recent inductee into the Watson Lane Hall of Fame, and his colleague Jim Moore, a founding member of the Marshall Goldsmith Group, for sharing their expertise in coaching the cabinet team to become more effective leaders. And I'll note that Marshall is a world-renowned executive coach and a best-selling author. 2 Valley High School students recently passed the phlebotomy certification exam through the National Health Career Association, and that's Principal Rob Stevenson, engaged in learning at Valley. The phlebotomy program is part of Valley's Medical Health and Environmental Program of Studies. It's part of the 5-star schools. These students are now employable with healthcare agencies. They plan to work in the healthcare field as phlebotomists while going to college to pursue degrees. They are the first students in the district to achieve this. As word spreads about this certification, we expect many more students will take advantage of this opportunity.
Are we going to go back to Valley now that we can get needles stuck in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll all be back. Coding at the Beach involves 6 students from Ballard High School. It was a collaboration with JCPS, Louisville Metro Government's Code Louisville program, and Kentuckiana Works. Students learned basic coding techniques from local coding professionals. At the completion of the program, these students were given Google Chromebooks from Code Louisville. They are being paid this summer to work and to apply the skills that they learned. As promised in updating the Success Pathways timeline, the staff process is continuing. Building modifications have begun. Planning for administrative and staff professional development is currently underway, and a Success Pathways meeting is scheduled actually tomorrow, Tuesday, June 23rd at 9 a.m. here at Van Hoos. In reviewing FAFSA data, we have made great progress over the past 5 or 6 years, but we have more work to do in planning for the class of 2016. We know that the College Transition Action Network, facilitated by 55,000 Degrees, will bring yet another level of support for our students and families in applying for financial aid. Just want to note that Fund for the Arts President and CEO Kristen Boone noted that the organization is working on a new master plan for the arts in Louisville, which will address how Louisville can build on the existing arts and how it envisions its arts community in the future. And we look forward to our participation. The area assistant superintendents, Vice Chair Diane Porter, and Fairdale High School Principal Brad Weston will join me as a team this year for the Public Education Leadership Project, PELP, at Harvard. It's from July 6th through the 11th. District teams will choose a strategic problem of practice that is clearly defined, strategically aligned, focused on outcomes, measurable, and directly linked to improving the instructional core. We look forward to that work. The Teacher Union Reform Network, or TURN regions, are partnering with the Consortium for Educational Change to sponsor a summer conference, and that's July 9th, 10th in St. Louis, Missouri, to strengthen teacher leadership in building communities of practice. Board member Dr. Lisa Wilner will attend along with members of the Jefferson County Teacher Association and JCPS administrators. In regard to the agenda item, Roman numeral 8BB, School Improvement Grant, this is just to note that 12 of our priority schools are eligible to apply for and receive dollars, regardless if they get out of priority status. These schools would continue implementing the same intervention model, turnaround or restaffing, and the dollar amount is $130,000 a year for 3 years. We now have 50 days before the 15-16 first day of school on Wednesday, August 12th. But who's counting? That's the countdown in seconds to the start of the 15-16 school year. Chair Jones, this concludes my report and my recommendation for approval of the consent agenda later in the evening.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hargens. We'll now move on to our action items. We have a speaker on action item 6A, and that is Mr. Chris Harmer. Mr. Harmer, would you come forward? You have spoken here before. You know that you have 3 minutes to address the board. After 2.5, a bell sounds, and after 3, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. So thank you for being here with us tonight, and you may begin.
Thank you, Superintendent Hargens and members of the board. I represent Fellowship of Reconciliation, representing 1,500 justice and peace households in Jefferson County. I'm hoping that my presentation is redundant, frankly, but did not get to hear the discussions about the summative review on June 8th. I looked in the year in review that was provided in the materials for the board meeting tonight, and noticed that did not see a discussion of the non-duplicated gap group achievement results in Superintendent Hargens' review. I hope that was an oversight. College and career readiness was there, graduation rate was there, overall achievement was there, but there was no discussion of the non-duplicated gap group achievement targets and progress toward them. All of these are trended on the same page on KDE data, and that's what I passed out to you and highlighted the one in question. Since no 2014 or 2015 data is yet available for any of these things, I went back to the same numbers that she used for the other data, and the gap group proficiency was 34% versus a 44.3% target, making about 25% of the increase that was targeted for the year. I understand that this is a state goal. On the other hand, the goal that's coming up this year is in your strategic focus, the 51.2%, and that represents about 7,000 GAP students rising to proficiency, but testing has already been done. And she and her team agreed to that in January. I hope the board has raised this as a serious performance issue, as the state board did in reviewing Terry Holliday the last year of his term. We were talking about roughly 3/4 of your customers. I know that this is only 20% of the overall evaluation of the district by the state, but we're a unique district in terms of our percentage of GAP students, and I really think we need to pay attention to this and look at the consequences for us. And if Dr. Hargens isn't held to that, the board must be. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harmer. That was a useful introduction, because the next item is the first action item, the board's 2014-15 summative evaluation of Superintendent Donna Hargens. I will introduce this item and speak on behalf of the board in summarizing the board's performance review of Dr. Hargens. The document was released to the website at approximately 7, I believe, and we've got hard copies that are going to go to the media, but I will summarize here and then invite my colleagues if they have any additions or just want to nod their heads in support. The board has had a very good collegial discussion of this, and we are of one mind in delivering this, this review. So first of all, with respect to the year gone by, the 2014-15 year, the board is pleased with Dr. Hargens' performance, and we congratulate her on a strong year. The core of the board's satisfaction is consistent with something she always says, which is put first things first. Student performance has improved. It's improved consistently, and it's improved across all demographic groups. Now, Mr. Harmer made a good point. It is one that we have discussed, and we are all focused on, the superintendent and the board. We understand very clearly that the district will not reach its goal of all students graduating prepared if we don't close the achievement gap. We understand that the majority of students in JCPS actually count in that not wonderful term, gap students. So this is something that the board and Dr. Hargens are of one mind about. We are not satisfied with the performance that we have attained so far with the current level of student achievement, but we applaud the fact that for 4 years in a row and in every group, we are moving in the right direction. And we applaud Dr. Hargens' leadership for bringing us to this point. Now, looking ahead, the board and Dr. Hargens also share a strong belief that what has brought us this far will not bring us to the goal that we all are heading for. In the coming year, we're calling out 4 new performance objectives for Dr. Hargens, and I will try to summarize them briefly. There's a little bit more information in the document. The first one is the same one that the board has put forward in past years. The first thing is the first thing, which is continue to improve student learning. But there's a little bit of nuance this year. We ask for continued learning according to state measurements. We are not backing off from the accountability measures, and it's critical that we continue to succeed in those ways. However, we're asking Dr. Hargens this year to include steps to define focus on individualized student learning, on strategies to close the gaps, and on basically definitions of learning that go beyond what standardized tests measure. This is a topic that the board and Dr. Hargens and the senior leadership have spent a lot of time on the strategy sessions. It's a topic that we've heard about in our community meetings. It's a national subject for discussion. How do we get beyond the sole-minded focus on testing? And we're asking Dr. Hargens to continue to hit the goals, but also to begin to broaden the definitions and help us figure out how to measure more deeply. So that's the first goal. The second is the one that, again, she called out as her top priority 2 weeks ago in her summary, and that is to focus on building a culture in JCPS that can take us where we gotta go. And the board described the culture that we envision as one that is structured around high-performing teams, that values collaboration, that fosters confidence among our professionals, that they not only have the support to do their job today, but to build a rewarding career doing this incredibly important work. So an environment where teachers and principals can be supported to do their best work, as well as people at all levels and in other positions. So culture change is hard, and it'll be it really needs to be a new focus and a different way of leading, but that's the second point. The third, and I'm just going to summarize a much longer topic here, but to improve execution at all levels in the organization. I think a lot of things that don't work are not because the strategy is not right or the target is not worthy, but because the right hand and the left hand don't necessarily know what each other are doing and things like that. So improve execution and the communication and other elements that it takes to make that happen. Last and not least is to strengthen the district's human resources and capabilities and practices to support great teachers and great principals in their work in every school, and to create a communications framework, again, so that people know what's going on and understand their role in the team and in the district. But building a contemporary HR capability is a critical issue going forward. And it's one where we really didn't get to where we wanted to be in the prior year. So in sum, the board is united in its confidence in Dr. Hargan's leadership, in its appreciation for what she's accomplished in this prior year with her team, and we look forward to great days ahead. So I would first ask my colleagues, are there any additional comments, or did I get it about right? Okay, Linda?
I just want to make a few comments related to the cultural recommendation. You know, the culture of our district is so important, and we are looking forward to things that you can do, Dr. Hargans, to promote the positive culture, because we have things that go on that sometimes confuse our staff and our employees, and it kind of shakes their confidence in things. And you know, I just to name a few things, we want to be sure that our new hires are able to do their jobs and help people. If that doesn't happen in the early phases of work, then the confidence gets shaken. If they don't think the hiring process is fair or clear or inclusive, then their confidence gets shaken. If there's not stakeholder input in the development of decisions, and not all decisions are without that. We have come a long way, I think, this year in being much more collaborative. But I think when situations happen where people haven't had input in it, that confidence gets shaken. And salary studies, we talked about that just a few minutes ago. The salary study is one of those issues that if it appears that they're under scrutiny, their salary's under scrutiny, and it looks as if their future is uncertain in what they make, and the confidence gets shaken. So I think essentially what I'm hoping for, and you've already begun to work on, is that close connection to the schools, so that people can gain the confidence in what you do and what you propose, and what we've recommended or what we've approved, and to understand that these things that we're doing are designed to help and improve student achievement, and we don't want them to be interpreted any other way. But it's that confidence. I think we have a district that's not that confident about what's going to happen to them, and I think that's an area that we've talked about often, and you will continue to make improvements in. But overall, Dr. Hargans, we appreciate all the work that you do, and look forward to the next year of what can be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Duncan. All right, Ms. Porter.
I just want to comment to the board and to Dr. Hargans, but particularly to the board, for the time that we have spent to develop the evaluation process. It's not an easy process, and to say thank you to everyone that has spent time, even long distance. Board Member Hadaway was able to communicate with us. The evaluation is serious and important, and we treat it as such. And I remember Chair Jones, when you first came to the board, you said it was one of the best processes that you had seen in place, and I think that it remains that. So thank you to my colleagues on the board and to the chair for all your hard work for making this possible. It is a roadmap for us to follow, and I would encourage everyone to read it, because there are specifics in there about what we will be working on and what we will be looking at as we move forward. So just a big shout out to say thank you to everyone that made this possible.
I think that's right. This is the board working at its best, and I thank all my colleagues for the seriousness, and Board Member Hadaway did indeed read and call in his input. So, Dr. Hargans, do you have any comment?
I actually do. I really want to thank the board for their investment of time, and it was quite an investment of time, and for their thoughtful feedback, but most importantly for their commitment to my professional growth. It continues to be an honor to serve 101,000 amazing students, to to work with over 15,000 employees, this community, this cabinet seated in front of me, and of course, these 7 board members. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 2014-15 Final Board Summative Evaluation? Okay, Ms. Porter moves, Ms. Horn seconds, all in favor? Aye. All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is approval of internal audit services contract with Dean Dorton Allen Ford LLC. The board had we've had a couple of work sessions on this topic, and I believe Eddie Muntz is going to give us a short presentation here.
Might be the shortest you ever got.
Fantastic.
I just wanted to explain the difference between this, why we're bringing this as an action item instead of a consent item with all the other professional services contracts. Most professional services contracts are where management is hiring a professional service. This is actually where the board is hiring it. And so it's your decision whether to go forward with Dean Dorton into the next year. So that's why it's being submitted as an action item.
Appreciate the clarification. Are there any comments or questions? The board has spent a good bit of time with Dean Dorton. We're grateful for their clear explanation and layout of what lies ahead, and also to the internal team for working so effectively to stand this up. So if there are no questions, is there a motion to approve? All right, Ms. Duncan moves, Mr. Brady seconds, all in favor, aye. Okay, thank you very much. That was indeed speedy. So there are no information items this evening, so we're now going to move to the consent calendar, and we have one speaker on an item on the consent agenda. That is Tia Brown, to speak on the grading scale. Ms. Brown, welcome up to the podium. And the framework here is you have 3 minutes. After 2.5, the little bell will sound once, and after 3, it'll sound twice, indicating that your time is up. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Well, thank you for allowing me to come up and speak. I want to say that I had an opportunity to sit in on the discussion topic today, and so my concerns stem from it. I am standing here to ask that either you postpone the vote for the grading scale, or you vote against it. And in support of this request, I want to bring up some items that were addressed or not addressed in today's discussion topic. One topic that was brought to the attention of the board was that grading practices are not standard within the school system. And that's different from the components that we saw, the 3 components that are used to grade each student. Another red flag was that 2 of the components were discussed in terms of how students would be graded within that component, but the 3rd, mastery, it was not discussed. So one would usually assume that the other 2 components would be a component of mastery, but it's not discussed in the reports here. Additionally, one of the reports that was provided was, I'll show you this one, page 1. It gives the number of students meeting 90 to 100%, and it bases it on high school students, so high school achievement. And I would question if maybe 3rd or 4th grade might be a better recommendation at looking at, because a lot of your literacy statistical projections look at 3rd and 4th grade. And so if we really are looking at the overall goal of making sure that our students are a success and that we leave no child out, that I would think that a younger student base might be a better grade to look at. And then lastly, I wanted to bring up that the grading scale of the 10 largest Kentucky school districts were used to support in support of Jefferson County making the change, but I didn't see any national statistics. And so if we're focused on college readiness and the ability to compete with other students going to college, our students are going to be competing nationally. Even if they choose to stay within the state, which is the requirement for the Key Scholarship, they're still competing with national students. So where do we rank, or where are we looking nationally when we're looking at changing these grading statistics? I really applaud,
You got 30 seconds.
Okay, well, I'll just use the basketball analogy. It's 8 seconds left in the game. One team is down by 2 points. What a coach would do is call a timeout. Then that coach would get their star player, the one who is a sure shot, to shoot the basket. So when you throw the ball in, you throw it to your sure shot. Why are we not looking to create sure shots? And I think that leaving the grading scale as is helps us to create sure shots and not just mediocre.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there are no tie bids this evening, so actually, Ms. Brown, I should say, the way we usually work is we ask the superintendent to give feedback on speakers. I don't know exactly how that will work since this is an agenda item and we're about to vote on it one way or another, but thank you for your considered, thoughtful remarks. Are there any items that board members would like to pull down from the consent calendar tonight? Linda?
I would like to pull down double A and double B.
Okay. Chris?
Item J.
J. Very good. Any others? Okay, so J is approval of bid tabulation, contract renewals, and amendments. Mr. Brady, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Chair Jones. I do have a question about this particular issue. I know that this is approval of, I guess, of a contract for legal services is included in this particular item, and it looks like we're picking two different law firms. I wasn't sure as to what rate we're going to be using. Is it a combination of both? Are we using, I'm not sure about the process behind that, and at what time, what would one law firm be the lead law firm or the secondary law firm? I'm not sure of that relationship and what rates are actually going to be charged to the district.
And I'll have CFO Harden look up the rates, but I can tell you the difference is Wyatt Tarrant and Combs would be the general legal counsel and the litigation and the construction. Middleton Rutlinger would be special ed. So they would not cross over, they would be distinct. But Ms. Harden, can you talk about the rates?
Each firm, we went through the RFP process, so each firm put forward their particular rates, and then we spoke with the director of purchasing, actually spoke with each of the organizations, and their rates are based on those negotiations with each of those particular organizations. And the contract reflects that in the RFP process.
The RFP mentioned 3 different levels, which I believe was a partner, the associate attorney, and then I believe a paralegal.
That's correct.
So we're looking at the 3 different rates for Middleton, Rutlinger, as well as Wyatt for each 3 of those levels.
Right, and we would get individual billings from each of those organizations based on whatever services they use as far as providing the services we have requested. So if it's a paralegal that is doing some research, then we would be billed at that paralegal rate.
Okay. And so my other question would be, I'm not quite sure if this is the time to do that or maybe at board request, but wasn't sure when, if there are going to be a process that's going to be mapped out as to when administrators should call, or what that line or chain of command is going to be, and also how that relates to us as board members. I'm not sure if now would be the time, or should we make that later on, but I'm curious. And when will we expect, or would that come before us, or when will we expect to see that?
And actually, we will work, once this is approved, with Frank Mellon, who would be serving as the general counsel, to create a protocol. And of course, board members will be able to have access to general counsel as well as staff members, but we will create a protocol with them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Duncan, let's go to double A, which is the student progression, promotion, and grading handbooks.
I think I would like to vote on this separately.
Okay, we'll call it down and then come back to it.
Okay.
And then
So are we going to discuss it later separately?
Yeah, let's get everything else cleared out.
Sure.
And come back to that one, unless what do you want to say about double B?
Well, I just have a question, and I didn't have an opportunity to get a clarification on this, but when Frost became a 6th grade academy, what kept it in priority status? Because it wasn't serving the same students, it didn't have the same staff, it didn't have the same principal. So what kept it in priority status?
Frost, Dr. Dossett is not in priority status. Knight is in priority status, and Valley Prep is in priority status, but Frost is not in priority status, so it's not on the list.
It's not on the list to receive the...
No, it's not in priority status, so it's not eligible to apply for SIG money.
Oh, okay, I thought it was. All right, thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. So could I have a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda except double A? Okay, Mr. Brady moves, Ms. Duncan seconds, all in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. And now there is discussion on double A, so Linda, you want to start off?
Yes, I've had a great deal of trouble with this because as I think about our discussion about closing achievement gaps, I'm afraid that this scale is going to be contrary to that. If we try and keep the two, or keep the C and D bar at a D, or at 70%, I really envision having more failures because the standards have been raised. We're teaching at higher levels, 2 grade levels above, and yet we're still using the same mark for passing at 70%. And you know, I can't help but feel that I think this is going to wind up causing or creating more failures on that end of the scale. And if it does, because it's going to be harder to make a 70% on these higher standards. So I just feel like I can't really support something that's going to hit probably our gap groups the hardest. And I think, I mean, that's what we're talking about. We want to close achievement gaps. But we're handing them a scale that's still frozen at 70% and expecting higher standards to be met. So I really have struggled with this. I struggled with it last night late, and I just can't, I can't go along with this. I don't think we're lowering any standards. The 80 to 90 and 90 to 100 are benefiting from that broader range. You know, we'll have our A's and our B's, and allow those kids to go on to get the eligible for KEYS money. But the lower scale, it's almost, I feel like we're almost just putting a barrier in front of them that I just can't support. So I just think that we should be looking more like what's happening other places in terms of that 10-point scale. I think it really is a better reflection of what the kids are doing, and the 60%, if it has to be 60, they're already trying to reach higher standards. So 60% allows them to, or some room on there. I'm afraid, why keep 70% as passing when you just raised your standards to be higher? I'm afraid we're going to run into more failure. So I'm not comfortable with this. I'm going to have to not support it.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments on this? Ms. Porter.
I'd like to thank the committee for the presentation today, but I would like to, I'm not going to not vote for it, but the recommendations that we heard from our speaker, I think we need to incorporate those into the work of the committee and answering some questions as it pertains to nationally, what does it look like? And there were some strategic things that she mentioned that I think that the board could receive information on that will not delay my vote tonight. But we are in the state of Kentucky, but our students go to college in Kentucky and other states in the United States. So I think it would be good to have some more information about that if possible. But thank you to the committee for the work. You came back to us with additional information after we asked for it, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Chair. So, first of all, I also want to share my congratulations and thanks to the committee and also the subcommittee that took a look at this and came before us and did the work to be able to get an idea of being able to move this particular issue forward. Some might see this as lowering standards. I do not see that as such. I see this as equalizing the playing field and giving our students equal access to scholarship money. It's more than just keys. There's going to be a lot of college administrators that are going to look at GPA and they're not going to take into consideration the idiosyncrasies of each individual school district, at least within this state, much less the nation. This is also something that affects those that are applying for jobs. Quite often, GPA is asked on the application for a job, so that's something to consider as well. And I was reminded the other day that this even relates to car insurance discounts. If you have a high GPA, you can actually get a discount on car insurance, which is something I should have remembered from my days of being a teenager, because I know I had to pay for my own insurance and own car, and that certainly helped me out, and I'm sure as a parent, it will definitely help me out as well. This is something that I have taken a look at from a state level. I've in the process of dealing with the last couple of weeks. I've gone, as I mentioned in our work session, I looked at about 153 of our school districts out of the 173 that are within the state of Kentucky. I just ran out of time to get to the last 20. But I'll reiterate those findings now. And the fact that right now 73 of the districts that I was able to research have a 10-point scale. 29 of those districts have a scale similar to what the district is recommending we move from. And 51 of those districts I was just unable to find data on, even though I went to the handbooks and I went to their district's website or high school websites and trying to drill down into all this information. We did some research on this as well. We got community feedback, and it was overwhelmingly positive to move to this particular scale. And it's very interesting when you took a look at the comments from the way some of the comments that people made regarding that particular feedback, especially the ones that weren't supportive of going to making this change, because a great number of those comments were actually wanting us to go to a true 10-point scale, which is something that I believe Member Duncan is in some ways advocating as well. So I do support this change, but I want to try and go for it here a little bit, because I do feel that a couple of our board members brought up the issue that taking the 70 to 79% area and splitting that into two, to where 70 to 74 is a D, am I correct on that? And 75 to 79 is a C, not only impacts our gap kids, but could also be perceived as an equity issue. And it's something that I hadn't really totally considered that until that issue or that point was made. And I think it's something that I want to make sure we can try and get it right. Let's get it right. So, and I do know that there is a viewpoint on the subcommittee that a true 10-point scale would probably be ideal, especially when matching this up to standards. So what I'd like to propose is I would like to make a motion that we do go to a true 10-point scale, where we do have everything would be the same as it is being proposed right now, with the exception of the C scale being from 70 to 79, a D being from 60 to 69, and anything below a 60 would remain a failing grade. And this is something that I had looked at a few other of our neighboring districts. Oldham County, for example, has a scale similar to this, except for if you're below 70 on that particular scale, it is a U, you're failing. We heard during our work session that this would be very difficult to utilize and input those figures within our own systems here at JCPS, and a D is kind of needed to be able to configure great GPA. So I'm actually open to this, and following a lot of the comments that I saw on our feedback, that we're actually going to a true 10-point scale. Also, also playing to some of those comments that were also brought up by my fellow colleagues here during the work session. So it's something that I would like to make a motion to be able for us to vote on, and if not, then I'll be perfectly happy to vote for this particular recommendation from the administration as well.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Okay, Ms. Duncan seconds. Okay, discussion.
I'm not clear there's a motion on the floor already, so are we is the motion for what's on the
Actually,
floor?
yeah, you
Because
gotta
we have to
phrase it
vote
as
that
a
motion
motion
As an
to
down.
amend. A
Okay,
motion to amend.
Second.
All right, and there's a second from Ms. Duncan. So now is there discussion on the motion to amend? Yes, Ms. Porter.
Understand what you say, but the report that came to us was for what we received tonight is what we received, and if we're going to change that, I think that should go back to the committee for conversation, because the committee brought the report to us. What we're doing by amending this is not allowing the committee work to matter, and I guess I have a problem with that. So for that reason, I will not vote for it, because the committee brought the recommendation to us. Now, they can amend that at another time, but if we're gonna, as a board, receive information at a work session and then come in here and change the amendment, the recommendation, I don't think that's fair to the work of the committee.
Okay. Other comments?
I just have a question, I guess. You know, I know with AP, it's a standard 10-point scale, and so when I saw the proposed grading scale, I thought, and I asked some questions about that and asked more questions in the work session about it. I guess I would just like to hear from you, Dr. Hargens, or somebody you designate. I would like some reassurance that this is not going to cause more kids to fail, and the question of it being an equity issue, I'm not sure I fully understand that, but I would love to have your thoughts about it.
Absolutely. I spent 2 hours with committee members, with them discussing their work and their rationale and how they reached consensus on the grading scale that they proposed. And they spent their time reassuring me that it wasn't about lowering the bar for our students, that we were going to continue to have high expectations for our student. What I heard them say is they couldn't reach consensus about going lower than a 70. So, and remember, the survey that was asked of parents and students and teachers was this proposed grading scale. So the one they reached consensus on, the one that people reacted to, that they were positive about, was that. So, like I said, I agree with the committee did hard work. They justified and provided a rationale to me and to us. That's why my recommendation is what the committee recommended. So that, so to go back to a different scale, that survey wasn't on that, what you're proposing. So I have a lot of faith in the teachers that responded to that survey and to the teachers that worked on that committee, that they worked together and reached consensus. That's why I would support the committee's recommendation.
Do you think we'll have more students failing as a result of this change?
I don't believe so, because having been a teacher myself, it is about a teacher knowing if students have met the standards of what they're expected to learn. And so we have very thoughtful teachers. So if students have reached the bar of meeting the standards to the level, I believe that those teachers will give the appropriate grade. So, but we have a lot of data, and after a year we can look at what the data shows regarding this. This is about setting expectations that students learn more, not about failing kids. So, like I said, we had thoughtful teachers on the committee who reached consensus regarding this.
Okay. Could you restate your motion to amend first?
Okay.
Kathy asks, so she can get it down properly.
Sorry, I make a motion to amend the grading scale to a true 10-point scale. Is that sufficient?
Okay.
My comments regarding the recommendation, and I in no way wish to belittle or take away any of the hard work that this committee has done, and I believe that they have done important work, and they've done a considerable fair amount of work as well. But understand that there is an issue of consensus going below 70. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there are people on this subcommittee and committee themselves that are opposed to a 10-point scale. So there is actually a fairly significant amount of people on that that hold that particular viewpoint. I don't see this as being something that I would feel is disrespectful to that committee, but I also understand that this is a recommendation, and as a board, we have a responsibility to be able to act on our own if we need to do so. So that's what, that's the source of where I come from on making this particular motion to amend.
Okay, I have a comment, actually, two comments. First of all, the discussion and the media discussion about this item suggests that the core element is about changing from a 7-point to a 10-point definition. In my view, that is a red herring. The core of this recommendation is to align across the district the definition of the different levels of success measured in a report card with the standards. Our speaker eloquently asked questions about, are we aligning with national standards? And the answer is that through the existence of the Common Core, what we're trying to do is align our grades with, I mean, that's what we've been told, with the way others measure whether a student has mastered the element at that level, whether they are moving toward mastery, or whether they are not progressing toward mastery. And, you know, what this district is all about right now is moving kids toward successful completion of K-12 so that they are ready for college and career. And the definition of failure, to me, has a whole lot less to do with whether it's 60 or 70, but instead has to do with whether they are on track toward that level. And I think what we've received is a thoughtful recommendation for how to begin to do that. And I think it's dishonest not to give students and their families a clear statement of whether they're on the track to success. Whatever their grade is, if they're not college and career ready, assuming that all of these tests measure the right thing, then we've defrauded them along the way. And I think the gist of this recommendation is, let's try to bring some order to all this stuff. So with respect to whether it's 10-point or 7-point, that's way beyond my knowledge level. And my view is the board should, if we agree with the goal, we should defer to the experts and the consultation and all that, and how they grade it. I don't want to substitute my judgment for the teachers and all the other people about 7 or 10 points, but I think the dialogue has missed what we're really trying to focus on here, and so I endorse the recommendation, and will vote in favor of it. So Linda, I think you had your hand up.
Oh.
Do you have any? I'm sorry, I thought you were.
I forgot what I was saying.
Okay,
There
well,
was
we
something else
may
I was
have
gonna
beaten
say.
this horse to death and be ready to vote. Are there any other comments, or let's see? So
Oh,
we.
I know, I
Yeah.
remember what it was. We get recommendations from committees like the calendar committee. We get recommendations from different committees, but we
Yeah.
also, it is our duty to listen thoughtfully to what that committee is recommending, and then, I mean, we're the ones that make the decision.
Yeah.
So I feel like we don't always have to take the recommendation, and we don't have a history of that. And I think sometimes some perspectives aren't the majority on a
Right.
committee, but our perspective also counts.
No, I think everybody respects that, and I'm only speaking for the way I think about my own expertise in this subject. So that's a fair point. So I think we have a motion and then a motion to amend, and I believe, Rosemary, you can help me. So we vote first on the motion to amend. So the motion to amend has been made and seconded. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Okay, that fails by 4 votes against and 2 in favor. So now we're back to the original motion, which is to accept the recommendation of Dr. Hargens on this consent agenda item. So, and has that been moved and seconded? I think, okay, moved, seconded. All right, all in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, that carries 5-1. Okay, thank you. That was a good discussion. I think it was a very good report from the committee, and this, you know, the adoption of higher standards and the way they work their way through our schools. It is a complicated process, and the search for the right amount of standardization and yet the right amount of local control is also an ongoing quest. So thank you all for the good discussion of that. So I think we're done with the consent calendar. And the next item is board reports, requests, and planning calendar. So why don't we take the planning calendar second this time, since we kind of jammed down pretty hard on board reports 2 weeks ago. Does anyone have anything to report? Wow. I do. Okay, Steph.
District 3 is going to hold a meeting on July 8th at the Norton Commons YMCA to discuss and get a name together for the new elementary school. So we're very excited. We've received probably by now hundreds, but at the time it was like over 50 great suggestions from the community. There is a web link that you can go to and submit names. It does ask for your address. We will give special priority to folks that live within the new boundaries of the elementary school for those names. But all names will be welcome, and they will all be in the pot. So it's pretty much an open meeting, so you all are invited, which I think is really exciting. So we're hoping to have a huge turnout. So it's July 8th at 7 o'clock at Norton YMCA. The other thing that I was just really, really excited about was the Fund for the Arts is doing a study, and one of the areas that they're going to be looking at is arts and education. So I think that this is an excellent opportunity for JCPS to, although we're not funding this study, which is exciting too, we can participate and give our data to inform from like an internal perspective on our perspective on arts and education. So other cities, if you look out, this is a citywide, you know, it's Fund for the Arts. It's looking at the whole city and education and arts. So we have a lot to say, and other cities have done equity studies where they looked at facilities, how our schools, arts, education facilities, how our programs, are they equitable throughout the district at different schools. So I'm really hopeful that we can use our data to show what's going on within our public schools here. And you know, there's potential for fundraising opportunities that would be external to us instead of raising taxes. You know, we'd be looking at as a community getting together around an arts priority as it relates to education, you know. So I just can't say enough about Kristen Boone and her leadership. It's been about 10 years since they've done that at the Fund for the Arts.
Okay, thank you. Chris, then Linda.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to report out for the Technology Performance Work Group and some of the work that was done during our meeting on June 15th. We met for about 2 hours, and unfortunately, due to an issue with getting notification out, this particular meeting was informational in nature. No particular action was taken or anything along those lines. We did receive some reports from the administration of their tour of Metro Call and Metro Safe, as well as their tour, we're actually speaking about Humana's Perfect Experience program. There was also some discussion about Boston Public Schools assignment process, and actually the fact that they reached out to us, and there's been a discussion with that, and they currently have a new way of doing their assignment process and how they rolled that out. We're in the process of trying to get an online tool that we are hoping to roll out, or the district is hoping to roll out after it's gone through some more testing and review processes that will enable our parents and to be able to get an idea and gauge what their chances are of getting their child to go to a particular school when they're trying to decide what school they would like to send their child to. So that's something that we're looking at. In addition to that, We also heard a little bit more about our website and the fact that we're looking at making that website more mobile friendly. So that is something that the Fig Leaf company, or company of Fig Leaf, that is currently creating our website, who also created the City of Louisville's website. Their tool actually allows you to do that fairly easily. And the only other thing that we talked about Bellarmine's Innovation Lab as well, and a technology ambassador program, and something about how we might be able to incorporate that within the JCPS technology framework. The next meeting for the Technology Committee will be on July 13th, and it will be from 10 to noon at Van Hoos, and that is a report from the Technology and Performance Work Group.
Okay, thank you. Linda?
Dr. Hargens, did we vote to use the people to design the website? Did we ever vote on that?
Yes, we have a contract for web design. We do.
Okay. Well, one thing I would like to request is that we have the principals of the 18 schools that have the no-mo zones designated, to have them tell us what those areas are used for, so we can make sure that we're not leaving no-mo zones or allowing them to exist over top of activities that they have on those. There are I think we have 18 schools, and is there a way that we can find out from the principals what they're presently using those areas for?
Absolutely. Dr. Razor visited each one of those sites and is supposed to give me a report.
Okay, very good. And I would also like to make recognize we had an inductee into the Hall of Fame, the Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame, June 17th at Fairdale High School, and that was we coached Lloyd Gardner, and he was recognized for his being assistant coach for Understand Hardin for 2 state titles that they won in basketball, and then as head coach winning a state basketball title, as well as having served as a trainer for the American Basketball Association Kentucky Colonels, and having which was the championship team, and then also having written 2 books about the Colonels. So we're very proud of Coach Gardner and the event that recognized him.
Great. Thank you. Any others? Uh-oh. Lisa?
Sure. Mine's just a quick update from the strategy work group that we concluded all 10 of our stakeholder sessions. 4 of them around the community, 1 of them online, 3 of them in schools with students, and 2 of them in Spanish at La Casita Center. And Jonathan, I'm going to put you on the spot. Where can folks see that feedback?
Summaries of all of those reports is on the JCPS website. There's a link right from under the What's New tab or section on the front page that will allow you to go there, and all of that's readily available. There's also an opportunity, if people didn't have the chance to weigh in thus far, to share their thoughts and insights on what they'd like to see for Vision 2020.
Terrific. Thank you. It was really wonderful to be in those meetings and then to read the input from the community. There was so much alignment in thinking across the district, and people are wanting to see more than test scores. We saw that reflected in the superintendent's evaluation. People are wanting to see us having students who can demonstrate things like critical thinking and some human capacities that we have yet to really clearly define, but something along the lines of compassion and caring and being invested in the community. So it's really exciting to see that shaping up. I think the student feedback reading that was particularly moving, and I think particularly affirming to the great work that our teachers do. So we heard students saying, we want our teaching not to be turned over to technology. We want to have relationships with people who care about us. And the students who've had those experiences in their schools had so many glowing things to say. So I really encourage people to take a look at that feedback. It's really quite powerful.
Okay, thank you. Diane.
Just real quickly, I wanted to go back and give a shout out to the coding students and the graduation that was held for them, and how exciting it was to listen to them explain their work, and also to say that because of collaboration with Metro Louisville, we were able to make that possible. And we always talk about ways to reach our students and what can we do, because we know that everyone does not learn the same way. They were extremely interested in that work. They were excited about it. They presented with enthusiasm and passion. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them again. Dr. Harkins did it in her report, but wanted to do it one more time and to say thank you to Metro Louisville for making, I think they were responsible for the lab, that Chromebooks that they got. So thank you for that. And also just wanted to mention that Dr. Harkins has initiated an effort for us to be more visible in the community, and last Wednesday, I think it was, at the NAACP meeting, John Marshall and Mindy Eves were there. Dr. Harkins has been there as well. So again, it's us taking the district to various parts of the community, so wanted to give a shout out to that as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I just want to thank my colleagues on the board for their hard and great work on these working groups. There is an awful lot of activity. I also need to thank Dr. Harkins, Jonathan, and the many, many members of the district's senior leadership, technology leadership, all up and down the line. Our partners in Metro government, JCTA, Bellarmine, U of L, KDE. I mean, we've got a lot of great people, Kentucky State University, who are involved in this, and the community turnout has been really strong and really helpful. I also want to mention Board Member Hadaway is absent, but he and Angie Morin, who is in the audience. Angie, raise your hand. Angie and Chuck are at the moment working on the finance working group, whose task principally is to keep up to speed with what is coming out of the strategy process, and then work with CFO Harden and the finance team to figure out, are we in the zone of possibility? How do we figure out how to pay for the marvels that we all identify as desirable? And so thank you for your work on that. But I think the community has turned out, and there's been a tremendous effort that I think is going to come to fruition in a good plan to move us along from where we are to, as we said in the beginning with Dr. Hargan's review, to where we want to go. That is a good segue to the board's planning calendar, which is the one item here that we need to vote on. And I will call your attention to the fact that it appears that July and August are pretty light, with only one formal board meeting in those months. I think it's pretty likely that we will have to schedule one or two additional strategy-related sessions, possibly a work group or learning sessions, unlikely to be a formal board meeting, but as the work begins to come together, we're going to have to iterate, as we've said. So summertime and the living's not going to be all that easy, I'm afraid, but it should be interesting. So is there a motion, or is there any other comment on the planning calendar? Is there a motion to approve it? Okay, Ms. Porter moves. Dr. Wilner seconds. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that carries. Very good. Okay, we have two persons requesting to address the board on non-agenda items. The first one is Jason Nichols. Mr. Nichols, are you here? Okay, the second is Brian Edlin. Mr. Edlin, are you here? Well, okay. We have no other speakers. We have no need for an additional executive session. So Diane?
One additional comment. As we go through the summer, we are in the process of identifying new principals for our schools, and they will come to the board in August for dinner with us. But I wondered if there's some kind of way that we can post on our website who our new principals are. Maybe we do that already, I don't know. But I think it's helpful to parents to be able to not only see the name, but to put a face to the name as we go through it. Last year, we were able to bring the principals in early before August, but the way it is now, our July 27th meeting will not be helpful, I think, as parents are working to get their students enrolled in school. So if we could do something to identify that, and I don't know if there's a recommendation from Dr. Hargens and staff about getting the word out to the school families, whether that's a letter or something on the website, because I think it's important for parents to know as we are naming new principals. Last week, I had an opportunity to get 2 new principals in District 1, and we're excited about that, but as excited as I am, I would like for everybody else to have that information and be excited about it as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry? Oh, we do need to go into executive session. Sorry, hold on. All right, my bad. It is necessary that the Board of Education recess and reconvene in executive session for the purpose of a discussion concerning negotiation strategies as provided under KRS 61.810(1)E of the Kentucky Open Meetings Act. Is there such a motion? Okay, Ms. Horn moves, Ms. Porter seconds, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thanks. I was beginning to get suspicious that we had a board filled with women's World Cup soccer fans. So, all right, for those of you who are free to leave, USA versus Colombia started 10 minutes ago, and I'm very sorry that we have to go into executive session, but thank you all very much, and I believe we are in executive session. Thank you.
That's great.
I didn't think I'd make a kickoff, but thanks for the magic of PPR.
You've been checking Twitter?